1. We've got a real treat for you. A 1972 Oldsmobile Delta 88 convertible that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at just $5,150, and let me tell you, it's a steal for a classic like this. Now I know what you might be thinking. Is this car really as good as it sounds? Well, I'm here to give it to you straight. The seller says the car is in good condition, and from what I can see, it looks like they're being honest. The engine starts and runs, and the power top is in very good shape, going up and down smoothly. That's a big plus for a convertible, let me tell you. Under the hood, you've got a 350 cubic inch engine and an automatic transmission, which should make for a smooth ride. And let's talk about those white leather power seats. Talk about riding in style. The car even has a tilt wheel and factory AC, so you can cruise in comfort. One thing that really stands out to me is that this is a Nevada car, which means it's likely been spared from the rust that can plague classic cars in other parts of the country. That's a huge selling point, in my opinion. Now, the seller does admit that the car needs some TLC to get it back on the road. But that's to be expected with a classic like this. And honestly, that just means you've got the opportunity to make it your own and really put your stamp on it. Overall, I think this 1972 Oldsmobile Delta 88 convertible is a fantastic find. It's rare, only one of 3,900 built, and these models are only getting more expensive as time goes on. If you're looking for a classic car that's sure to turn heads and provide plenty of fun on the road, this might just be the one for you. 2. I just stumbled across a 1972 Chevrolet Malibu Chevelle on Craigslist, and let me tell you, this car has some serious potential. First off, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $15,000 for this beauty, which might seem a bit steep at first glance. But when you consider the fact that this is a California car with a clean title and current registration, it starts to look like a pretty solid deal. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This car is a bit of a project. The seller admits that it needs some TLC, and there are a few rust issues to address. But hey, that's part of the fun of owning a classic car, right? It's a chance to put your own stamp on it and make it truly yours. Under the hood, you've got a small block 350 with a 4-bolt main, an RV cam, and dual exhaust. The seller says the compression is good, and the engine doesn't burn oil, which is always a good sign. The transmission is a TH400 auto, and while there might be a minor leak, that's pretty much par for the course with a 50-year-old car. One thing that really caught my eye is the list of recent repairs and modifications. We're talking all new Willwood disc brakes, a Holly Street Avenger carb, a Street Fire HEI distributor, and a quick steering gearbox. Plus, it's got Craigar rims with knockoffs and a metal cowl induction hood. These are all solid upgrades that show the seller has put some real thought and effort into this car. Now, I'm not gonna lie. There are a few issues that need to be addressed. The interior needs some love, there's no headliner, and the OEM seats need to be rebuilt. There's also some rust in the rear wheel tubs and lower rear window, which is pretty common for these cars. And while the AC components have been removed, the seller does have all the original parts to rebuild it. But here's the thing, the bones of this car are solid. It's got a clean title, a strong engine, and a whole lot of potential. With a little elbow grease and some TLC, this could be a real showstopper. So, if you're looking for a classic Chevelle project to sink your teeth into, this might just be the one. It's not going to be a cakewalk, but the payoff could be huge. And hey, at the end of the day, isn't that what owning a classic car is all about? 3, we're taking a closer look at a 1970 Oldsmobile Delta 88 that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This sedan is being offered for $7,000, and while that might seem like a fair chunk of change, there's a lot to love about this vintage ride. First off, let's talk about the mileage. The seller claims that this Delta 88 has just 42,000 original miles on the odometer. If that's true, then this car has been seriously pampered over the years. It's rare to find a classic car with such low mileage, and that alone could make this a worthwhile investment for the right buyer. The seller also notes that the cloth interior is in great shape for its age. That's a big plus, as many cars from this era have interiors that are either torn, faded, or just plain worn out. It's clear that someone has taken good care of this car over the years. Under the hood, you'll find a V8 engine paired with an automatic transmission. The seller doesn't provide any specifics on the engine, but given that this is a Delta 88, it's likely a big block with plenty of power. The car is said to start and drive, which is always a good sign. However, there are a few things to keep in mind before you go rushing to buy this car. The seller notes that it needs a set of good tires and a new battery. While those are relatively minor issues, they're still things you'll need to budget for if you decide to take this car home. Additionally, the seller mentions that there's a lien on the title. That means there's an outstanding loan or debt associated with the car that will need to be paid off before the title can be transferred to a new owner. It's not necessarily a deal breaker, but it's something to be aware of and factor into your decision. Overall, this 1970 Oldsmobile Delta 88 looks like a solid classic car with a lot of potential. The low mileage and well-maintained interior are definitely big selling points, and the fact that it starts and drives is encouraging. However, the need for new tires and a battery, as well as the lien on the title, are things to consider before making an offer. If you're in the market for a vintage sedan with plenty of style and character, this Delta 88 might be worth a closer look. Just be sure to do your due diligence and get all the facts before making a decision. 4. We've got a real treat for you. A 1975 Chevrolet El Camino that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic pickup is being offered for $13,900, and let me tell you, it's a beauty. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller says it's in good shape overall, and from what I can see in the photos, it looks like they're telling the truth. The paint job is a gorgeous imperial blue metallic, and it's brand new. The glass is all in good condition too, including a new windshield. The chrome wheels are a nice touch, and the seller even threw on some new front tires. Under the hood, you'll find a 350 motor that was rebuilt back in 1994. The seller says it's got some nice upgrades, like an Edelbrock 4-barrel carb and aluminum manifold, a new oil pump, and a new left motor mount. They even did a compression test, and all the cylinders were holding strong between 100 and 115 psi. The transmission is a 350 auto, and while the seller admits it does leak a bit, they've done some work to address it. They put in a new cooler, filter, and fluid, as well as a new rear seal and bushing. The power steering and brakes have also been given some attention, with a new pump and hoses for the steering, and new master cylinder and pads for the front discs. Inside, the El Camino is looking sharp. The seller put in some new racing seats, a new console, new floor mats, a new tachometer, and a new radio/CD player. They even added some shoulder seat belts for safety. Now I know what you might be thinking. What's the catch? Well, the seller is upfront about a few things. The odometer has rolled over, so the actual mileage is unknown. The speedometer is also running slow, but the seller includes a GPS speedometer odometer to compensate. And of course, with any classic car, there's always the possibility of some hidden issues. But here's the thing. The seller has put a lot of work into this El Camino. They've replaced a ton of parts, from the water pump and hoses to the alternator and starter. They've even done some upgrades, like the dual exhaust and chrome differential cover. It's clear that they've taken good care of this car. So if you're in the market for a classic El Camino with some serious style and a lot of potential, this might be the one for you. The seller is asking $13,900 or best offer, and they're only accepting cash, no trades. They're also willing to answer any questions and provide more photos if needed. As always, I recommend going to check it out in person and giving it a thorough inspection before making any decisions. But if everything checks out, this could be a great opportunity to own a piece of American automotive history. 5. We've got a sweet ride to check out, a 1985 Chevrolet Corvette C4 that's up for grabs on Craigslist for just $8,500. First off, let's talk about the looks. This Vet is rocking a sleek red exterior that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. The seller admits the paint is just fair. But hey, for a nearly 40-year-old car, it still looks pretty darn good to most folks who aren't expecting a show-quality finish. Plus, it's got a removable red roof that you can store in the back when you want to feel the wind in your hair. Now, let's pop the hood and see what's powering this beast. It's got a 300-foot ECI engine with tuned direct port injection and dual exhaust. The seller believes it's the stock engine, which is a testament to how well it's been maintained over the years. Paired with a 700 R4 overdrive transmission and a 3.07 Posey track rear end, this Vetta should have plenty of get up and go. The seller has put some recent work into this car to get it road ready. They've slapped on a new set of Kumho all-season tires that are rated for up to 50,000 miles and speeds up to 168 mph, not that we condone testing that out. They've also replaced the radiator hoses, most heater hoses, most engine sensors, the fan belt and idler, and thrown in a brand new battery. Inside, the seats are in good shape, and the dash isn't all cracked up like you might expect in an older car. The digital dash gauge panel has been completely rebuilt, which is a big-ticket item that's already been taken care of. Power windows, power steering, and power four-wheel disc brakes round out the creature comforts. Now, the seller does mention that the AC needs some work, and there's a small oil drip under the car. But hey, for a car this age, a little TLC is to be expected. And with just 126,000 miles on the odometer, which goes up to 9999, 9999, so you know it's original, this Vetta still has plenty of life left in it. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic American sports car with tons of character and style, this '85 Corvette is definitely worth checking out. The seller seems pretty upfront about the car's condition and recent maintenance, and at just $8,500 cash, or best offer, it's a lot of car for the money. Just remember, as with any used car purchase, it's being sold as is. So be sure to give it a thorough once-over before handing over the cash. 6. We've got a real treat for you, a 1973 Pontiac Grand Prix that's up for grabs on Craigslist for just under $10,000. This classic American sedan has got some serious style and a whole lot of history behind it. First off, let's talk about the ownership. This Grand Prix has had just 2 owners in its lifetime, which is pretty impressive for a car that's nearly 50 years old. The current seller has provided some great details about the car's history and condition, so let's dive in. Under the hood, you'll find a 400 cubic inch motor with a 4-barrel carb. The seller mentions that the engine was rebuilt around 40,000 miles ago by the previous owner, and they even added a mild cam for a little extra oomph. The transmission is an automatic, which is great for cruising around town or hitting the highway. The seller has put some work into this Grand Prix to keep it running strong, including a newer radiator, power steering, brakes, and battery. They mention that the car runs and drives great, and they'd even feel confident driving it across the country tomorrow. That's a pretty bold statement, but it speaks to the overall condition and reliability of this classic ride. Now, let's talk about the exterior. The seller admits that the car was painted years ago, so it may not be a show quality finish. But from the photos, it looks like a pretty solid paint job that's holding up well. The body appears to be straight and free of any major rust or damage, which is always a good sign for a car of this age. Inside, the interior is described as pretty good, with a great headliner, dash, and seats. The seller does mention that the trunk pan and weather stripping could use some attention, but those are relatively minor issues that could be addressed down the line. The odometer shows just 138,000 miles, which is pretty low for a car of this age. And with a clean title and a price tag of just $9,995, this Grand Prix could be a great way to get into the classic car game without breaking the bank. Now, as with any used car purchase, it's important to do your due diligence before making a deal. The seller seems pretty upfront about the car's condition and history, but it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection and take it for a test drive before handing over the cash. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic American sedan with plenty of style and character, this 1973 Pontiac Grand Prix is definitely worth checking out. With its rebuilt engine, solid interior, and affordable price tag, it could be the perfect addition to your garage. Plus, the seller is even open to trades for an SUV. So if you've got a Suburban, Yukon, or Tahoe lying around, this could be your chance to swap it for a piece of American automotive history. 7. We've got a unique ride to check out. A 1971 Ford Ranchero that's up for sale on Craigslist. With an asking price of $8,500, this classic pickup car hybrid could be a great addition to your collection. First off, let's talk about the engine. Under the hood, you'll find a 302 V8 that's been recently serviced. The seller mentions that it runs and drives well, which is always a good sign. Paired with an automatic transmission, this Ranchero should be a breeze to drive around town or on the highway. The seller has also put some recent work into this ride, including new tires. That's one less thing you'll have to worry about if you decide to pull the trigger on this purchase. Now, let's talk about the condition. The seller is upfront about some minor rust on the driver's side rear wheel well, which you can see in the photos. But they also mention that the overall condition is pretty good, which is encouraging. It's important to keep in mind that this is a 50-year-old vehicle, so a little bit of rust is to be expected. The odometer shows just 61,000 miles, which is relatively low for a car of this age. Of course, it's always a good idea to verify the accuracy of the odometer reading before making a purchase. The exterior is rocking a green paint job, which looks pretty classic and cool in the photos. The seller doesn't mention anything about the condition of the paint or body, so you'll want to take a closer look in person to assess any dings, dents, or fading. Inside, the seller doesn't provide any details about the condition of the interior. So, you'll want to check out the seats, dash, and other components to make sure everything is in good shape and functioning properly. One big plus with this Ranchero is that it comes with a clean title in hand. The seller also mentions that it's currently registered, which means you should be able to drive it home without any issues. Now, as with any used car purchase, it's important to do your due diligence before handing over the cash. The seller seems pretty straightforward about the condition of the vehicle, but it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection and take it for a test drive to make sure everything checks out. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic Ford Ranchero with a strong V8 engine and some recent maintenance, this 1971 model could be a great option. With an asking price of $8,500 cash, it's not the cheapest Ranchero out there, but it seems to be in pretty solid condition overall. Just be sure to check out that rust and verify the mileage before making a deal. 8. We're taking a closer look at a 1979 Chevy Malibu that's up for grabs on Craigslist. With an asking price of just $6,500, this classic American ride could be a great addition to your collection. First off, let's talk about the basics. This Malibu is rocking a black paint job that looks pretty sleek in the photos. The seller describes the condition as good, which is always encouraging to hear. Of course, it's important to keep in mind that this is a 40-plus-year-old car, so a little bit of wear and tear is to be expected. Under the hood, you'll find a V8 engine that's paired with an automatic transmission. The seller doesn't provide any details about the engine size or horsepower, so you'll want to inquire about that if you're interested in making a purchase. But with a V8 and rear-wheel drive, this Malibu should have plenty of power to get you down the road in style. The odometer shows 150,000 miles, which is not uncommon for a car of this age. Of course, it's always a good idea to verify the accuracy of the odometer reading and ask about any recent maintenance or repairs that have been done to keep this classic running strong. Inside, the seller doesn't provide any details about the condition of the interior, so you'll want to take a closer look at the seats, dash, and other components to make sure everything is in good shape and functioning properly. If there are any rips, tears, or cracks, be sure to factor that into your decision-making process. One big plus with this Malibu is that it comes with a clean title. That means you shouldn't have any issues with registration or ownership if you decide to make a purchase. Now, as with any used car, it's important to do your due diligence before handing over the cash. The seller seems pretty straightforward about the condition of the vehicle, but it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection and take it for a test drive to make sure everything checks out. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic Chevy Malibu with a V8 engine and a clean title, this 1979 model could be a great option. With an asking price of just $6,500, it's not the cheapest Malibu out there, but it seems to be in pretty solid condition overall. Just be sure to ask about any recent maintenance or repairs, and take a closer look at the interior before making a deal. 9. We've got a real treat for you, a 1962 Chevrolet Impala that's up for sale on Craigslist. This classic American muscle car is a true head-turner, and with an asking price of $14,000, it could be a great addition to your collection. First off, let's talk about the basics. This Impala is a two-door coupe with a sleek black exterior and a bold red interior. The seller describes the condition as fair, which is important to keep in mind. While the car looks great in the photos, it's always a good idea to inspect it in person to get a true sense of its overall condition. Now, let's dive into the details. Under the hood, you'll find a big block 396 HP Chevy motor that's sure to get your heart racing. It's topped with a Holley 4-barrel carburetor and Hedman headers for maximum performance. The seller has also upgraded the cooling system with a DeWitt's aluminum radiator and SPAL electric fans to keep everything running cool and smooth. The transmission is a built 700R that's been designed to handle all that power. And with a battery box and roll cage installed, you can feel confident pushing this Impala to its limits. Inside, you'll find a set of working gauges, including a ProTac, temp, fuel, and oil pressure gauges. That means you can keep a close eye on all the vital signs while you're out on the road. The exterior of this Impala has been given some serious attention too. It's got fiberglass front fenders, a cowl hood, and shaved trim for a sleek custom look. The bumpers have been painted to match the body, and the whole thing rides on a set of classic Craigslist SS wheels. Underneath, the suspension has been completely redone to ensure a smooth, comfortable ride. And with rear-wheel drive and a big block V8, this Impala is sure to be a blast to drive. Now, it's important to note that the odometer is broken, so the actual mileage is unknown. The seller has listed it as 95,131 miles, but that's something you'll want to clarify before making a purchase. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic Chevy Impala with some serious performance upgrades, this 1962 model is definitely worth checking out. With an asking price of $14,000, it's not the cheapest Impala out there, but it's got a ton of custom features and a big block V8 that make it stand out from the crowd. As with any used car purchase, it's important to do your due diligence before handing over the cash. Be sure to inspect the car thoroughly, take it for a test drive, and ask the seller any questions you have about its history and condition. But if everything checks out, this 1962 Chevrolet Impala could be the perfect addition to your garage. It's got the classic looks, the modern performance upgrades, and the undeniable cool factor that makes it a true standout on the road. 10. We've got an interesting find on Craigslist, a 1980 Chevrolet Malibu sedan with a rebuilt title, and it's up for grabs at just $3,000. This classic American ride has been brought back to life by the current owner, and it could be a great project car for someone looking to dive into the world of vintage vehicles. Fert off. Let's address the elephant in the room, the rebuilt title. The seller mentions that the car had to have its right rear quarter panel replaced at some point, which led to the rebuilt status. While this may raise some eyebrows, it's not necessarily a deal breaker if the repair was done properly. Just be sure to get a thorough inspection and ask for documentation of the repair before making a purchase. Now let's talk about what this Malibu has to offer. Under the hood, you'll find a 4.4-liter 267 V8 engine paired with an automatic transmission. That's a solid powertrain combination that should provide plenty of get up and go for cruising around town or hitting the highway. The seller notes that the car runs, drives, and stops well after some recent maintenance, including a fuel system overhaul and new spark plugs. One thing to keep in mind is that the air conditioning system is not currently working. That's something you'll want to factor into your decision-making process, especially if you live in a hot climate. However, the seller does mention that all the AC components are present and intact, so it may be possible to get the system up and running with some additional work. The odometer shows 250,000 miles, which is not uncommon for a car of this age. However, the seller notes that the actual mileage is $169,000, so keep that in mind when considering the overall condition and value of the car. Speaking of condition, the seller describes the body as quite presentable, with a few minor flaws like scratches on the driver's door and some bubbling on the lower front fender. The silver paint job looks good in the photos, but as with any used car, it's always a good idea to inspect it in person to get a true sense of the overall condition. Inside, the seller notes that the interior is clean, with some sagging in the seat. That's not uncommon for a car of this age, and it may be possible to address with some minor upholstery work. The seller also mentions that all the pollution controls are present and intact, which is a plus for anyone looking to keep this Malibu as original as possible. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic American sedan with a V8 engine and some recent maintenance, this 1980 Chevrolet Malibu could be a great option. With an asking price of just $3,000, it's a relatively affordable way to get into the vintage car hobby. Just be sure to do your due diligence on the rebuilt title and get a thorough inspection before making a purchase. 11. We've got a real treat for you, a 1965 Ford Mustang that's been in the same family since the 90s. This classic pony car is up for sale on Craigslist for $12,000, and it could be the perfect addition to your garage. First off, let's talk about the basics. This Mustang is a coupe model with a clean title and current registration. It's finished in Wimbledon white with a red interior, which is a classic color combination that looks great on this vintage Stang. Under the hood, you'll find a 200 cubic inch inline-six engine paired with a 3-speed manual transmission. While it may not be the most powerful engine option available in the '65 Mustang, the seller notes that it runs great and has been reliable enough to use as a daily driver on occasion. In fact, they've driven it 25 miles each way to work with no problems. The seller is upfront about the fact that this Mustang isn't perfect, but they emphasize that it's complete and a great runner. That's important to keep in mind when considering a classic car like this. It may have some imperfections, but as long as it's structurally sound and mechanically solid, it could be a great candidate for a restoration or just enjoyment as is. The odometer shows just 45,284 miles, which is relatively low for a car of this age. Of course, it's always a good idea to verify the accuracy of the odometer reading and ask about any previous repairs or maintenance that's been done to keep this Mustang running strong. One thing to note is that the seller doesn't provide any details about the condition of the interior or exterior beyond the color combination. So you'll want to take a closer look at the seats, dash, and body to assess any wear, tear, or damage that may need to be addressed. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic Ford Mustang with a clean title and a solid running condition, this 1965 model could be a great option. With an asking price of $12,000, it's not the cheapest Mustang out there, but it's got the vintage charm and family history that make it a special car. 12. We've got a real blast from the past, a 1970 Cadillac Coupe de Ville that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic luxury car is a true time capsule, and with an asking price of just $8,500, it could be the perfect addition to your collection. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller describes this DeVille as all original, with just 39,000 miles on the odometer. That's incredibly low mileage for a car that's over 50 years old. The seller also notes that everything works, from the power windows and seats to the radio, wipers, and lights. They even included photos of the speedometer hitting 85 miles and 90 miles on a recent cruise, which is a testament to the car's mechanical condition. Under the hood, you'll find a massive 472 cubic inch V8 engine paired with a 3-speed automatic transmission. This was the top-of-the-line powertrain for the 1970 DeVille, and it's sure to provide plenty of smooth, effortless power for cruising down the highway or rolling up to a classic car show. The seller has made some recent upgrades to this DeVille, including new shocks, springs, tires, and a wiper motor. That shows that they've been maintaining the car and investing in its longevity. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the rust. The seller is upfront about the fact that there is some rust present on this DeVille, particularly on the roof after removing the vinyl top, as well as in the lower front fenders, rear quarters, and trunk. There's also a pinhole near the rear window and a cracked windshield. While this may be a deal breaker for some buyers, the seller notes that the rust and cracked windshield never bothered them as they use the car as a weekend cruiser. It's important to keep in mind that some rust is to be expected on a car of this age, especially if it's been driven and enjoyed rather than kept in a bubble. However, the extent of the rust and the cost of repairs is something you'll want to carefully consider before making a purchase. On the plus side, this DeVille comes with a clean title and current registration, so you shouldn't have any issues with paperwork if you decide to make it yours. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic Cadillac with plenty of vintage charm and a smooth V8 engine, this 1970 Coupe de Ville is definitely worth a closer look. With its low mileage, working features, and recent upgrades, it could be a great candidate for a weekend cruiser or a full restoration project. 13. We've got a real gem to share with you, a 1955 Pontiac Chieftain that's up for sale on Craigslist. This vintage beauty is a 4-door model, and it could be yours for just $10,000. Now, I know what you might be thinking. The seller's description is a bit sparse on details. They haven't provided much information about the car's condition, features, or history. But don't let that deter you from considering this classic Pontiac. What we do know is that the car is currently located in Pacific Beach and is being stored in a garage. That's a good sign, as it suggests that the car has been protected from the elements and may be in better condition than one that's been sitting outside. The odometer reading is listed at 50,543 miles, which is relatively low for a car that's over 65 years old. Of course, it's always a good idea to verify the accuracy of the odometer and ask about any previous repairs or replacements that may have been made. The seller notes that the car has a clean title, which is another positive sign. It means that there shouldn't be any issues with ownership or registration if you decide to make this Chieftain yours. As for the powertrain, the ad specifies that the car has an automatic transmission and runs on gas. The Pontiac Chieftain was available with a few different engine options in 1955, including a straight 6 and a V8. Without more information from the seller, it's hard to say which engine this particular car has, but either one should provide plenty of power for cruising around town or hitting the highway. Now, I want to be upfront with you. The lack of details in the ad means that there could be some issues with this car that the seller hasn't disclosed. It's possible that there's some rust, dents, or other damage that isn't visible in the photos. The interior could be worn or torn, and there may be mechanical issues that need to be addressed. That's why it's so important to do your due diligence before making a purchase. If you're seriously interested in this Chieftain, I recommend reaching out to the seller and asking for more information and photos. See if they're willing to let you come check out the car in person and take it for a test drive. If the car does turn out to have some issues, don't necessarily let that be a deal breaker. Many classic car enthusiasts enjoy the process of restoring and repairing vintage vehicles. Just be sure to factor in the cost of any necessary repairs or upgrades when considering the asking price. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic 1950s American car with plenty of style and potential, this 1955 Pontiac Chieftain is definitely worth a closer look. With its four-door layout and automatic transmission, it could be a great choice for cruising around with friends or family. 14. We've got a sweet ride to share with you, a 1974 Mercury Cougar XR7 that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic muscle car has been given some serious love and attention, and it could be yours for just $7,000. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller describes this Cougar as being in excellent shape, and based on the details they've provided, it's easy to see why. The car has recently undergone a fresh paint job in a bold orange color that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. The seller also mentions that there have been many other upgrades done to the car, which is always a good sign. Under the hood, you'll find a rebuilt 351 Cleveland V8 engine. This is a seriously powerful motor that's sure to provide plenty of thrills when you hit the gas. The seller doesn't specify exactly what work was done during the rebuild, but it's safe to assume that this engine has been given a new lease on life and should have plenty of miles left in it. The ad also notes that this Cougar has a clean California title and that the seller has the pink slip in hand with their name on it. That's great news, as it means that there shouldn't be any issues with ownership or registration if you decide to make this car yours. Other key features of this Cougar include an automatic transmission and rear-wheel drive, which is the classic setup for a muscle car like this. The odometer reading is listed at 85,000 miles, which is relatively low for a car that's nearly 50 years old. Of course, it's always a good idea to verify the accuracy of the odometer and ask about any previous repairs or replacements that may have been made. Now, I want to be upfront with you. While the seller describes this car as being in excellent condition, it's always a good idea to approach a classic car purchase with a critical eye. Even the most well-maintained vintage vehicles can have hidden issues or quirks that may not be immediately apparent. That's why I recommend taking a closer look at this Cougar in person if you're seriously interested. Ask the seller if you can come check out the car and take it for a test drive. Look for any signs of rust, dents, or other damage that may not be visible in the photos. Check the interior for any wear or tear, and make sure that all of the features and electronics are working properly. If everything checks out and you're ready to make this Cougar yours, be prepared to act fast. At just $7,000, this car is priced to sell and likely won't last long on the market. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic muscle car with plenty of style and power, this 1974 Mercury Cougar XR7 is definitely worth considering. With its fresh paint job, rebuilt engine, and clean title, it could be the perfect addition to your garage or the start of a fun new project. Just remember to do your due diligence and approach the purchase with a critical eye. With a little bit of research and some careful consideration, you could be the proud owner of a true piece of American automotive history. 15. We've got an absolutely stunning 1973 Chevrolet Impala up for sale on Craigslist, and let me tell you, This beauty is not to be missed. With an asking price of $12,500, this classic American muscle car could be the perfect addition to your collection or the ultimate daily driver. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Impala. The seller describes it as like new, and based on the details they've provided and the photos in the ad, I'm inclined to believe them. This car has been incredibly well maintained over the years, with just 73,997 original miles on the odometer. That's right, less than 74,000 miles in nearly 50 years. It's clear that this Impala has been loved and cared for by its previous owners. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 8-cylinder engine that the seller says runs amazingly well. They also note that the engine bay is super clean, which is a testament to the level of care and attention that's been put into this car. The transmission is an automatic, making it easy to drive and enjoy. One of the things that really sets this Impala apart is its overall condition. The seller mentions that everything works, from the mechanical components to the interior features. The undercarriage is solid, and the car is ready to be driven anywhere in its current state. That's a rare find for a classic car of this age, and it speaks volumes about the quality of this particular Impala. The interior of the car is also a standout feature. The seller notes that everything is original, which is incredibly cool for a vintage car like this. The photos show a clean and well-maintained interior that looks like it's been frozen in time. From the dashboard to the seats, everything appears to be in excellent condition. As for the exterior, this Impala is finished in a beautiful green paint color that really pops in the sunlight. The body looks straight and free of any major dents or damage, and the chrome trim and bumpers are shining brightly. It's the kind of car that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. Now, I know that the asking price of $12,500 might seem a bit steep for some buyers, but when you consider the overall condition and originality of this Impala, as well as its low mileage and the level of care that's been put into it over the years, I think it's actually a pretty fair price. This is the kind of car that you could enjoy driving every day or showing off at classic car events, and it's sure to hold its value well over time. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's always a good idea to do your due diligence before making a final decision. I recommend taking a closer look at the car in person, if possible, and asking the seller any questions you might have about its history and maintenance. But based on what I'm seeing in this ad, I think this 1973 Chevrolet Impala is an absolute gem that's definitely worth considering. 16. We've got an absolute beauty to share with you. A 1963 Ford Thunderbird that's been lovingly restored and is now up for sale on Craigslist. With an asking price of $15,000, this iconic American luxury car could be the perfect addition to your collection or the ultimate weekend cruiser. First off, let's talk about the overall condition of this Thunderbird. The seller describes it as being in excellent shape, and based on the details they've provided, it's clear that a lot of time and effort has gone into restoring this classic car. While the seller does note that it still needs some TLC to be 100% perfect, it sounds like most of the major work has already been done. Under the hood, you'll find a rebuilt 390 engine that's been upgraded with some serious performance parts. The Edelbrock intake manifold and 4-barrel carburetor, along with the HEI distributor and wires, should provide plenty of power and reliability for cruising down the highway or showing off at classic car events. The transmission has also been recently refreshed, ensuring smooth and easy shifting. The seller has also put a lot of work into the Thunderbird's chassis and braking system. The front end and entire brake system have been completely replaced, including an upgraded chrome master cylinder and booster. This should provide excellent stopping power and a smooth, comfortable ride. Moving on to the interior, this Thunderbird has been given some serious love and attention. The carpeting has been replaced, and the power front seats have been reupholstered. The seller has even added lap seat belts for added safety. While the rear seat does have a minor split on top and the door cards need some work, these are relatively minor issues that could be easily addressed by a new owner. As for the exterior, this Thunderbird is finished in a sleek black paint color that looks absolutely stunning in the photos. The seller notes that the car is very solid, having spent most of its life in Southern California and Colorado. All of the emblems have been replaced, and the rear bumper has been re-chromed. The front bumper and grille are also said to be in excellent condition. One really cool feature of this Thunderbird is the hydraulic wipers, which are run from the power steering pump and are fully functional. The seller does note that the windshield washer system needs to be completed, but again, this is a relatively minor issue that could be easily addressed. Now, I know that the asking price of $15,000 might seem a bit steep for some buyers, especially considering the 225,000 miles on the odometer. But when you consider the level of restoration work that's gone into this car, as well as its overall condition and the upgrades that have been made, I think it's actually a pretty fair price. This is the kind of car that you could enjoy driving on weekends or showing off at classic car events, and it's sure to turn heads wherever you go. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's always a good idea to do your due diligence before making a final decision. I recommend taking a closer look at the car in person, if possible, and asking the seller any questions you might have about its history and maintenance. But based on what I'm seeing in this ad, I think this 1963 Ford Thunderbird is an absolute gem that's definitely worth considering. 17. We've got a real treat for you, a 1979 Lincoln Mark V that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at $13,500, and let me tell you, it's worth every penny. First off, can we just take a moment to appreciate the condition of this classic? The seller describes it as excellent, and from what I can see, they're not exaggerating. With only 23,000 miles on the odometer, this Mark V is practically a time capsule. It's clear that the previous owners took great care of this vehicle, and it shows in every detail. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 8-cylinder engine that runs like a dream. The seller notes that it's strong, quiet, and smooth, which is exactly what you want in a luxury coupe like this. And with a newly installed fuel tank, you can cruise for miles without worrying about any issues. The white paint job is simply stunning, and it perfectly complements the classic lines of the Mark V. This is a car that's going to turn heads wherever you go, and it's not just because of its good looks. The leather seats are in great shape, and with power everything, you'll be riding in comfort and style. Now, I know some of you might be skeptical about buying a car sight unseen, but the seller seems genuinely sincere in their description. They've provided plenty of details about the car's condition and features, and they're only looking for a cash sale. Plus, they're willing to consider offers in person or over the phone, which shows that they're serious about finding the right buyer for this gem. In short, if you're in the market for a classic luxury coupe that's in excellent condition, this 1979 Lincoln Mark V is definitely worth checking out. With its low mileage, powerful engine, and stunning good looks, it's a car that's sure to impress. So why not take a chance and give the seller a call? Who knows, you might just drive away with the car of your dreams. 18. We're taking a closer look at a real classic, a 1963 Corvair Monza that's up for sale on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at $15,000, and it's got a lot going for it. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller describes it as good, and from what I can see, it's clear that this Corvair has been well maintained over the years. It's been garage kept and fully restored, which is always a good sign. However, it's important to note that the seller does mention some cracking in the paint, so that's something to keep in mind. Under the hood, you'll find a 6-cylinder engine that's been turbocharged from the factory. That's right, this Corvair is a rare find indeed. The seller notes that it's in excellent running condition, which is exactly what you want to hear when you're considering a classic car like this. The convertible top is in great shape, which is a big plus. There's nothing quite like cruising down the road with the top down on a beautiful day, and this Corvair is ready to deliver that experience. The original Cordovan brown paint job with fawn interior is a classic color combination that really makes this car stand out. Now, I know some of you might be hesitant to take on a project car like this, but the seller seems to be upfront about the condition. They mention the cracking paint, which is a common issue with older cars, but they also note that it's been fully restored with all the extras. Plus, with a clean title, you can be confident that you're getting a car with a clear history. The seller does note that they must sell, which could be an opportunity for some negotiation on the price. However, given the rarity of a turbocharged Corvair in this condition, it's likely that it will still command a premium price. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic convertible with some serious power under the hood, this 1963 Corvair Monza is definitely worth checking out. It's got a great color combination, a rare turbocharged engine, and a fully restored interior. Just be prepared to put in some work on the paint if you want it to look its best. But hey, that's all part of the fun of owning a classic car, right? 19. We've got a real gem for you. A 1974 Chevrolet Corvette that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at $15,000, and let me tell you, it's worth every penny. First off, can we just take a moment to appreciate the condition of this classic? The seller describes it as good, and from what I can see, they're not exaggerating. With only 35,000 miles on the odometer, this Corvette has been well maintained and cared for over the years. The white paint job is simply stunning, and it perfectly complements the classic lines of this iconic sports car. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 350 Ci V8 engine that's paired with an automatic transmission. The seller notes that everything works as it should and is all original, which is a testament to the quality and durability of these classic Corvettes. And get this, even the AC works. That's a rare find in a car of this age. But what really sets this Corvette apart is the list of new items that have been installed. We're talking about new tires, brake calipers, valve covers, tail lamps, real leather seats, a new carburetor, intake manifold, water pump, spark plugs, and even an AGM battery. It's clear that the seller has put a lot of time and effort into making sure this car is in top condition. Now I know some of you might be thinking, but what about the title? Is it clean? Well, I've got good news for you. The seller confirms that this Corvette comes with a clean Texas title. That means you can buy with confidence, knowing that there are no hidden issues or surprises waiting for you down the road. And here's the kicker. The seller might even be interested in a partial trade for a Harley-Davidson Breakout or similar motorcycle. So if you've got a bike that you're looking to trade in, this could be your chance to own a classic Corvette and get a great deal in the process. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic sports car that's in great condition and has been well maintained, this 1974 Chevrolet Corvette is definitely worth checking out. With its powerful engine, new parts, and clean title, it's a car that's sure to turn heads and provide plenty of driving excitement for years to come. So why not take a chance and give the seller a call? Who knows? You might just drive away with the car of your dreams. 20. We've got a real treat for you. A 1966 Buick Special that's currently up for sale on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at $10,000, and let me tell you, it's worth every penny. First off, can we just take a moment to appreciate the condition of this classic? The seller describes it as like new. And from what I can see, they're not exaggerating. With just a little over 43,400 miles on the odometer, this Buick Special has been incredibly well preserved over the years. It's clear that the previous owners took great care of this vehicle, and it shows in every detail. The turquoise mist iridescent paint is simply stunning, and it perfectly complements the black interior. This color combination is classic 1960s, and it's sure to turn heads wherever you go. The paint looks flawless in the photos, and I can only imagine how great it looks in person. Under the hood, you'll find a Fireball V6 engine that's paired with a 2-speed automatic transmission. This engine puts out 155 horsepower, which is plenty of power for cruising around town or hitting the open road. And with a 2-barrel carburetor, you can expect smooth and efficient performance. But what really sets this Buick Special apart is the attention to detail. The seller notes that everything works as it should, even the AM radio. That's a testament to the quality and durability of these classic cars, and it's clear that this one has been well maintained over the years. Now, I know some of you might be hesitant to take on a classic car like this, but the seller seems to be upfront about the condition. They describe it as like new, and from what I can see in the photos, that seems to be an accurate assessment. Plus, with a clean title, you can be confident that you're getting a car with a clear history. The asking price of $9,195 is definitely on the higher end for a Buick Special, but given the condition and low mileage of this particular car, I think it's a fair price. These classics are becoming increasingly rare, and finding one in this condition is a real opportunity. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic 1960s car that's in incredible condition, this 1966 Buick Special is definitely worth checking out. With its stunning color combination, powerful V6 engine, and attention to detail, it's a car that's sure to impress. So why not take a chance and give the seller a call? Who knows? You might just drive away with the car of your dreams.